What's up, guys? Today on our episode,
we're going to be talking about one guy going to this world, one guy going to that world. We're also going to be talking about the rise and fall of Konami. All that stuff for you is next here on the Nerdynomicon. Welcome to the Nerdynomicon. I'm one of your hosts, Robbie.
and I'm one of your other hosts, Adrian.
Adrian, you were not with us last week for Twin Peaks Week. We missed you so much.
It would have been very quiet on my end. I don't have much with that show. Not that I dislike it, I just haven't seen it. And, I just haven't gotten around to it. I just haven't had enough time since it first came out.
It's been a quarter of a century, bro.
I've been very busy.
That's okay. Well, we had other stuff that we talked about. Brooke came on. We did an episode about Riverdale, which I like to call Twin Peaks Light. It was such a fun week. We ended off with the Facebook Live show. It was absolutely awesome, man. We had a great turnout for that. I mean, especially for our first one. I was so happy with the way things turned out.
I have one minor beef with your Facebook Live.
Okay.
You just said that it starts at 7. We got 8, whatever. We got fans around the world. We need time zones, man.
Oh my god, dude, you are so right. You are 100% right. Oh my god, I feel like such an ass.
Because it starts at 8 for you, but it starts at 7 for me, and it starts at 3 for somebody somewhere.
That's a very good point. Oh my god, I cannot believe I overlooked that.
It's all right. We live and learn. And we apologize to anyone not in the Eastern time zone, apparently.
That's right, because all of us that were doing the Facebook Live, we were all in New York. And come to think of it, we did have listeners all around the United States. So that's a very, very good point. I cannot believe I didn't put in the time zone.
I feel bad for the person who tuned in at 8 o'clock at their time and was like, where's this live stream?
Well, to be fair, at that point it was archived. It wasn't live at that point, but it was there. So, as a matter of fact, it's still there on our Facebook group. If you guys want to check it out, facebook.com/group/Nerdynomicon. Join in, man. Join into the group. Enjoy the conversations. We're in there all the time talking about different shit. There's hints to what we're going to be talking about dropping all the time in that channel. Not to mention our live show is still there. We also just put it up on YouTube. That's our first YouTube official video. Because we've got our podcasts that have been going up there, and people have been listening on there. But it's June. We're starting up with Facebook. Or, not Facebook, YouTube. You know what I mean. God damn it.
Starting up with everything.
We're starting up with everything. We're starting up with YouTube this month. And the Facebook Live show is up on YouTube right now. And Holly's already working on the first couple of shows that she wants to do. So we're going to be having a lot of fun there. So I'm taking care of the podcast format, and I'm going to be jumping on YouTube, from time to time as much as I can as well. But for the most part, it's going to be Holly. She's going to be taking the bull by the horns there.
Okay. And we're still going to try to get some game streaming stuff going somewhere, sometime, someday.
Oh, dude, you and I have got so many good conversations. You had a lot of great ideas for stuff like that, like drunken Dark Souls.
I like that. I also like I like the lore series with Dark Souls, where I play it and decide whether or not I'm going to listen to your advice. Or you said roll a die to all right, let's see.
Yeah, make it interactive or something. We should, if there's a way to do that, we need to figure out the logistics, because you live in Texas, I live in New York. We need to try to find a way to figure out the logistics of doing that, maybe try to do that on Facebook as well. That way we've got some of our listeners that can kind of join in.
And we'll tell them the time zone thing when we were going to do the live stream of our
gameplay. And we'll do the time zone for sure. Oh, I cannot believe I fucked that up.
Nah, it's okay. I just wanted to get that little dig in there, just kind of.
I know you do.
You had a couple extra pegs you needed to be taken down. So.
Well, all in all, I think it was a pretty big success. We had a lot of fun talking. It seems like everybody that tuned in kind of enjoyed it. So we're definitely going to be doing it again. I know that we want to do something like that for the premiere of Game of Thrones, but maybe we'll turn that into like a monthly thing. Do like a monthly Facebook Live show. Just need to figure out something in June to do.
I will definitely be equally quiet for the Game of Thrones as I was for Twin Peaks.
You know, for a show that we talk about nerd and pop culture, man, there's some major milestones that you just don't hit, like Game of Thrones and Firefly
And Doctor Who and Twin
and
Peaks.
Doctor Who.
And the
Well,
list
Twin
goes
Peaks.
on.
Twin Peaks, I get. Twin Peaks is a bit on the obscure side, but it's something that I have loved since I was 19 years old. I just happen to have a lot of friends in the podcasting community, like Aaron O'Brien from Synthaholics. He loves it as well, and he agreed with me that Fire Walk with Me is an absolute masterpiece. That's why I had him on that episode. It was kind of weird what happened with the audio too, because I checked the settings and everything was exactly the way I always record them, and then it came out sounding like I recorded off of the laptop. And I'm like, well, we were talking about evil spirits that travel through electricity. Maybe we were onto something. Maybe the spirits just happened to fuck with us then too.
Maybe. That's possible. Somebody should do like a horror themed podcast along those lines. I'm just kidding. You can cut that if you need to.
No, I'm not cutting that. I'm writing down a note. That's a really good idea. What else did I want to talk about before we got started? Oh, yeah, I want to give another shout out to Anthony and Batmanda from Irrational Fears podcast. We gave them a shout out at the end of the Facebook Live show, and then they turned around and they do a series like once a month or so called Real Talk. And what Irrational Fears is it's like a horror narration podcast where they tell different stories from like No Sleep and whatnot. They did a phenomenal series for Infected Town. I mean, it was really creepy. Both Amanda and Anthony they hit the nail right on the head with that. It was absolutely phenomenally done. But we gave them a shout out at the end of our live stream because they're getting married and their wedding is coming up here like in about a month or so from the time we released this. And they just came out with a Real Talk like a couple of days later where they gave us a shout out. So it's almost like a you hang up first. No, you hang up first. You hang up first. No, you hang up first. So, Anthony, Amanda, you hang up first. You get a shout out now.
Now, is the Nerdynomicon crew or Artful Gremlins, are we all invited to the wedding? Can we podcast from their wedding?
Well, they live in Las Vegas. So
why not?
Hey,
yeah. Let's go.
Guys, you spring for some transpo, we will live podcast your wedding. I will do commentary myself. Hell, I actually am an ordained minister. I will marry you myself if need be. If you guys want. I'll just be standing up there with you, take both of your hands. Now repeat after me. In darkest day, or in brightest day, in darkest night. I just lost the job right there. I can't even do the fucking Green Lantern pledge. I lost the job before I even had it.
I like in darkest day. In darkest day and darkest night.
In brightest night, because it is Las Vegas. No evil shall escape my sight. I would love to go as well, but I know that they were thinking about doing something streaming for a lot of their friends, because they've got friends all over the place. Because they've made a lot of friends in what they do, like reading No Sleep stories. They become friends with a lot of phenomenal authors. As a matter of fact, I met Anthony through MJ Orrs, which was another guest that we had on the show. And he and Brooke, they're both writers. They just happened to meet each other, and she invited him on, and the rest is history. We've just become good friends with Anthony and Amanda through there. So, but they've been really putting in a lot of work. They've got their show. They're doing an audio book that's coming out pretty soon. They're both in the Sleepwell archives from Lizardface Radio. They both do a fantastic job there.
So it's like when there's people doing toasts at a big event and it just goes around and around and around and around. So,
yeah, basically.
Okay.
Basically. It's like a big round robin thing. So I do know that we all want to work together again really, really soon, because they were on a Patreon exclusive episode where we reacted to the trailer for the new Star Wars movie the day that it came out. And I just happened to get in touch with Anthony. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to put together a group from different podcasts to talk about this. Are you in? And he's like, yes, I'm in. I forget how it went down, but he's like, yeah, I'm in. I'm driving to California right now, but we're going to figure out a way to make this work. And lo and behold, they did, too. So I got him, Amanda, a guy named Zach from A Nightmare on Fear Street podcast, which is like a R.L. Stine Goosebumps podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I got them, and I also got David Duncan on there from Synthaholics as well. So that one's up on Patreon right now. It was a lot of fun.
So
I think the trailer was like 2 minutes long. We talked for like 45 minutes. It was a lot of fun, though.
all these people were in the car driving to California?
No, they were in the car. David's here in New York. He was at work. He's working his day/night job, and he just happened to duck into a server room and hang out on the phone talking Star Wars for 45 minutes. I fucking love it.
No,
it's so awesome.
He was
I was in
checking the
studios.
cables. He was checking the cables in there, making
He was
sure.
doing
Yeah.
something like that, yeah. So I do know that we all want to work together sometime really soon. So hey, guys, I'm game whenever you are. Hopefully, maybe before the wedding, definitely afterwards. And if you guys want some other narrators to come on, I would happily volunteer myself. Holly is our voice actress. I can tell you right now, if you guys need some more female voices on your show, Holly's game. You've got a plethora of people here. We all got to work together sometime real soon, man.
I think you're forgetting a certain terrible Russian accent.
And if you need a mad Russian, if you need somebody to do a Putin impression, we got Adrian Steve right over there in Texas.
Hello.
All right, so we've got about a 10-minute intro there just talking about shout-outs and what's been going on in the last week and everything. You ready to get the show started in earnest?
I think so. I think I'm ready.
All right, I've just got a couple of pieces of news that I want to touch on because we've got a really cool topic that we're talking about today. The first thing is 1 part happy and like 50 parts sad. I'm sure a lot of you guys have already heard this. Joss Whedon is being brought in to finish up with the reshoots and a lot of the extra work that's going on for the Justice League movie. Reason for that is Zack Snyder had a personal tragedy in his family. I read a couple of articles. Turns out it actually happened in March, and he kept everything really, really quiet and finished up the movie, or as much as he could, but it just became too much. Kind of a difficult situation to talk about. He had a very personal tragedy, something that no parent should ever have to go through. He lost a child, and that's just heartbreaking. Love his movies or hate his movies, it doesn't matter. No parent, no person, no human being deserves to go through something like that. So our hearts and our thoughts, our good vibes are with Zack Snyder and the rest of his family. The benefit to that is we've got Joss Whedon, who's already over there at DC. A man that started out with the Marvel Universe not started out, but as far as comic book movies go, started out with Marvel working on the first 2 Avengers movies to finish up the Justice League movie. So it's still definitely going to be a Zack Snyder picture, but it's going to have hints of Joss Whedon in it as well, which is only going to make whatever was going to happen to us even better. So
I'm expecting the movie to be full-on musical now, honestly.
you know what? I'd be fine with that. There's not enough musicals in the world as far as awesome stuff.
There's a lot of bad ones, though.
There's a lot of bad ones, yes, but how many times do we get awesome stuff like that musical episode of Buffy or that musical episode of Daria? We need more musical stuff in the world.
Or that musical Spider-Man.
Okay, on to the next bit of news.
I'm just saying, it's not always good. And
No, that's a good point.
Superheroes and music,
That's-
not exactly
yeah, that's
meshing.
definitely a good point. In other news, starting out in one world, going to another, Tom Hardy. You may remember motherfucker as Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. He's jumping over, and he's going over to Marvel to play Venom.
It's not connected at all to the Spider-Man universe or the Spider-Man movies. Like, I don't know how you have Venom without Spider-Man, especially as the first movie.
I don't know. Has it been confirmed that it's not going to... Well, I don't necessarily need him to be in the first movie. As far as I know, this is slated for release in October of 2018, if memory serves. So, I mean, what? The Guardians Infinity War Part 1 comes out in that May or June of 2018, doesn't it?
I'm not sure exactly on the release date.
I think it's earlier than the Venom movie is slated to come out, which means that they could introduce Venom in Infinity War. So, I mean, it easily could have its ties there,
But I don't.
which I'd be fine with.
I don't think that's going to happen though, because it's still very much
you're-
a Fox
it may not.
property, right? Or Sony. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely Sony. But Sony has been playing in Marvel's sandbox now. Marvel has allowed Sony to play in their sandbox because they're like, hey, come on over here. The sand's fine. We can build sand
Yeah,
castles.
they're like, hey,
Have Robin Sparkle sing crazy 80s love ballads about it in the early 90s. It's crazy over here, man. And Sony has finally realized, hey, Fantastic Four sucks a bag of dicks. Maybe we should hang out with those guys, get a little bit of Robert Downey Jr. action going on here. So,
a little Marissa Tomei, you know.
dude. Oh my God, Aunt May, played by Marissa Tomei. I'm so in for Homecoming.
You know what?
And as a 30-year-old man, that came out in a really weird way.
I actually skipped the most recent trailer because I felt like the trailer before it gave away so much. I was like, I'm not watching this trailer. I'm not.
You just want to stay fresh with it?
Yeah, I feel like
I hear you.
I feel like I already know too much. I really want to enjoy the movie. I want to be surprised, and a lot of movies are predictable, and that's fine. But I don't want it to be predictable because they already showed me the entire movie in trailers.
I get that. Yeah, I totally get that. But I don't know. I always liked Venom, and I always liked Carnage growing up. I mean, as everybody who listens to the show knows, I wasn't a huge Marvel or DC fan except for Batman growing up. I was very much into like Image Comics, Spawn, Savage Dragon, Wildcats, etc. But I always had a soft spot for Venom and for Carnage. So I'm very, very interested to see what's going to happen with these movies. Maybe we'll get the Maximum Carnage storyline. Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch, but maybe.
From what I understand, that it's going to be like a separate standalone property. And while I think you could do that if you've already introduced Venom, if you haven't, I mean, the comic book people are going to know. The people that are into Spider-Man are going to know. But those are the people
Right.
that are going to go see the movie one way or the other. If you're trying to like make money and make a franchise and have multiple movies and build a universe, assuming that's what Sony wants to do, or at least have mild success, you're gonna have to get the people that don't know about him to come out. And he would not exist if it were not for Spider-Man. He's got Spider-Man's powers plus a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, he's a symbiote or something like that.
So I mean, it's just like it seems like a very poor decision to not have that character linked to arguably one of the most popular superheroes of all time as his introduction, because his character is 100% based off of him. It's not like Doc Ock or any of the other or
Mysterio, the Scorpion.
They are a villain in the Spider-Man universe, but they weren't essentially created because of Spider-Man.
Right.
So that's my only beef.
No, I hear that. I definitely hear that. But who's to say that they may not show up? I mean, as far as I know, it's completely unconfirmed. I mean, the Tom Hardy news is only, a couple of weeks old? We just haven't had a chance to really talk about it. We don't break the news here at Nerdynomicon for the most part. We just react to it. So, I don't know. He may show up, or at least have a cameo or a hint about it in Homecoming. And depending on what they do with the script, sometimes a hint is really all you need. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I just find it very interesting that Tom Hardy is going to be playing Venom. And do you remember the stuff that was pumping through Bane in the comic books to make him into Bane?
I think it was called Venom.
It was called Venom. You see, it all connects. It's a big circle. It's a big circle jerk of awesome.
But so just to be 100% clear on this.
Yes.
They are not bringing back Topher Grace to play Venom?
They are not bringing back Topher Grayson to play Venom. That is correct. Thank fucking Christ.
That reminds me. I think this might be on our last episode due to the glitch. I promised you that I was going to tell you how I was going to fix Spider-Man 3.
You did. And I think that was on the glitched episode, the lost one that will never be found. It must never be played.
Okay.
As they said, and this is Spinal Tap.
I will kind of rush through it because we got so much to talk about. We're
Yeah, we do.
so off topic. It doesn't matter though because this is amazing.
Right.
So, I think the movie series had a great setup that they did not use and they should have, because it would not have been true to the comic books or the cartoons or any of that shit. But the way that the movies were playing out, you wouldn't have had to introduce Topher Grace to become Venom. You already had a better candidate, and it was John Jameson. He's an astronaut. He was going to get married to Mary Jane. She runs away to go be with Peter. He can he brings the symbiote back accidentally. Symbiote attaches to Peter Parker, gets split from Peter Parker, finds, John Jameson. John Jameson already has that hatred for Peter Parker, and now he finds out he's Spider-Man, and it's just like, how did they not do that? And then, cut out a lot of the other shit. Cut out you don't need any of the Green Goblin shit. Fuck that.
That's true.
Sandman, give him a reduced role. But I mean, it's just like, if you wanted to focus on a Venom movie, you had a perfect setup that was not comic book, but really ready to go.
And you know what? You don't always have to be comic book when making a comic book movie. You already have the main characters.
Yeah.
You already have your Venom. You already have your Spidey. You've already got your Dick, okay? You don't need to tickle the nuts every single time. Sometimes you just need to shoot.
So, I mean, I feel like...
I love how you just completely gloss over my metaphor.
I was just...
Adrian's over there. Yeah, it's a weird metaphor, granted, but okay, we're just going to move on from that.
I'm just used to it. I'm used to your weird metaphors. I firmly believe that you could have made a good Venom movie out of Spider-Man 3 if they had done that, instead of bringing in Topher Grace, who's totally the wrong fit for either of the roles.
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree more. That was just a bad movie all the way around. It wasn't Fantastic Four bad, but it was fucking bad.
Yeah. It was...
Fantastic Four was the Geely of superhero movies. And I say that with the utmost confidence in my statement.
It was the Ben Affleck Daredevil of superhero movies.
Oh, God, no. Ben Affleck's Daredevil was a lot better than that shit. And that statement made me throw up in my mouth a little bit, but I stand by it.
Oh, maybe. Oh, actually, and that's funny.
You didn't see what I saw, Adrian Steve.
Coming up on things that didn't make any sense in superhero movies, I saw a lot of people complaining about Suicide Squad recently, and they had a really good point. They have, the main baddie is this demi-goddess thing.
The Enchantress, yeah.
Way more powerful than everybody else in the entire team for whatever reason. Except
for maybe Diablo.
There was a very wide range of skills, from worthless to can take over the world. It didn't really make sense.
Yeah.
There's a weird team. But anyways, they have this chick who has a blade, has a sword that can steal souls. How do they not ever use that? How could that not have been the solution to the demi-goddess? You know what I mean?
Poor writing. That's how.
Yeah.
Poor writing.
Just awful.
Maybe if they wanted to make it the Harley Quinn show. That's how they got around it. And furthermore, I did like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, but I like her a lot less now that I know that Kristen Bell was almost the Harley Quinn that we got. That kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for Margot Robbie. Because although I love oogling those shorts, I would have much preferred Kristen Bell in the singlet. Give me Kristen Bell, put her in the onesie, that's my movie. That's just have her in the onesie making jokes for an hour and a half. That's it. That's all I need for Suicide Squad.
I don't know. She's got the cutesy look, but I don't know that she's got the crazy. You know what I mean? And it's very possible she could pull it off. But
oh, trust me, she got the crazy. I've seen some roles that she's played. She's got the crazy. You think that Margot Robbie had it?
I think she pulled it off decently enough. Now, keep in mind, her performance was the shining light in a shit sea.
Yes,
so
it was. Absolutely agreed.
You could argue that it wasn't that great. It just seemed great because it was surrounded by so much awful, terrible bullshit.
Right.
And I would agree that is a heavy possibility. But I wasn't disappointed with her. I would say I was more disappointed with the writing.
Either.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we are way off topic here. We've talked about Suicide Squad till we're fucking blue in the face and our audience is blue in the face. We've got a review that we want to get to before we start talking about our main stuff here.
Is it my review or your review? I can't remember.
It was your review.
My review?
Yes.
Okay, so I just watched a movie called Dig Two Graves. It is available on Netflix. It says it was released in 2017 or 2014. Take your pick, unless there's a rewrite or I don't know. Sometimes they redo movies. Anyways, I thought it was really, really interesting. It is a thriller about a girl who loses her brother and is tempted to bring him back by some mysterious men with mysterious forces. But in the course of doing this, there's you're trying to figure out exactly what happened. Can they do this? Why are they offering to do this? And there's some history there between some of the families that are involved in all of this, and there's some really great flashback cuts. And so you never really know exactly what's going on. They do a good job of stringing you along till the end. So I don't want to give away too much, so I'm being pretty vague. But I will say I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it if you've got a spare 90 minutes, 100 minutes on your hands, and you want to watch something interesting. Dig Two Graves, Netflix.
All right. What have the critics been saying about it? Before we got going on this, you kind of told me a little bit about the movie. Pretty much what you just said on air here. People are kind of split on this, right? Didn't you say Ebert gave it like 3.5? Or
yeah, it seems like it's all over the place.
The Ebert scales now?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I think both Siskel and Ebert are dead.
Yeah, but was he alive in 2014? When was
he? Might have been alive in 2014.
I don't know. It was released in 2014 because I see 2014 and 2017. Anyways,
I have no idea. Maybe it's posthumous, or maybe it's like zombie Ebert rose from the grave to score it or something. It's like 3.5 the brains. I don't know.
Maybe Zombie Ebert is recalling like a simpler time, like the 70s, and his actual review is just the title of the movie. It's like Dig Two Graves, 2 graves out of 2 graves standing right up. No, I mean
we're talking about Ebert, not John Madden.
Whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of all over the place. Roger Ebert, 3.5 out of 4. Rotten Tomatoes, 80%. IMDb, 5.7 out of 10. So, take your pick.
Damn.
Who do you normally agree with? Or just watch it. It's 90 friggin' minutes. You've done dumber things for longer.
Paranormal movie at all?
Is that a question?
Yes. Or do you not want to answer that because you don't want to give things away?
No, I don't think it's fair to call it a paranormal movie. I'd say there's aspects of kind of supernatural, but it's not really explained.
Fair enough.
So, there are aspects of it, but it's not. You're not going to go in. It's not like The Exorcist or Poltergeist or anything like that. It's not along that level.
Okay, right on. All right, fair enough. So, okay, 2 graves or Dig Two Graves?
Dig Two Graves.
Dig Two Graves. I'm going to watch it. You guys check it out. Let us know what you think in our Facebook group, or let us know on Twitter as well, at Nerdynomicon. And again, that Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Nerdynomicon. Let us know what you think. Check it out. We got one more thing to talk about, and then we're going to get to our main topic. And that last thing is the Castlevania trailer.
Oh, yeah.
That just dropped. We're getting Castlevania as a Netflix original series coming out in July. So, trailer starts out, and it's kind of weird. It's a type of trailer I haven't seen before, and I was really wondering what they were going to do with it. And it starts out with just an old Nintendo system, and the camera just kind of tilts around it and everything, and then it frames the shot perfectly with Netflix on the television and Nintendo right below it, to kind of highlight both companies.
Mm-hmm.
Then it just goes into basically a little bit of a teaser thing. I mean, it spends most of the trailer on the setup for the Nintendo console and the television. Come to think about it, that angers me. But the teaser that we got was very, very interesting.
I agree. I think the one thing that bothers me about the teaser, especially the Nintendo NES system setup part, the menu they have it set up like the cursor is like a mouse. It's like free floating. It's like that. No Nintendo game had it. Just make the little arrow that blinks to each individual option. Come on now.
Exactly.
That's the only minor thing. But other than that,
I hear you.
I thought it was a really interesting way to deliver the trailer, and
Definitely.
I'm hyped about it. But I'm super hyped for Castlevania. I love that series of games.
Now, I have a couple of qualms. For the most part, I'm praising what I'm seeing. But I guess I have some qualms about what I'm not getting. Because I was under the impression that Castlevania was going to be a live action. And as a matter of fact, it was starting to be... from what I understand, again, it was being slated as a Netflix version of Game of Thrones. Only, Castlevania style with vampires and the Belmonts and shit. I mean, dude, Simon Belmont, Trevor Belmont, I'm in, man. I'm so fucking in for this.
I'm trying to figure out...
But then I'm seeing anime.
Where did this, live action thing come from? A lot of people were saying they thought it was going to be live action, and from what I understood, it was always going to be... there were preliminary talks about how it might be live action, but it seemed like it was more than likely going to be an animated series. That was my understanding.
I can't cite any sources, and to be honest with you, maybe it was just... what I thought we were getting in my head. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never at any point remembered hearing that it was going to be an animated series. And again, I'm not condemning that because I am into anime. But I don't know, man. I guess I was a little bit disappointed, or at least a little bit taken aback, because I was expecting the live action trailer, Yeah,
I get that. And as I said, I don't know where this idea came from that was going to be live action, but let's say you want live action. Watch the frickin' cartoon. And get everybody else to watch it. And
then maybe they'll do it in live action.
Exactly.
Yes. So that was really my only qualm, is what we're not getting. But we've only got a snippet of what we are getting here. And the snippet that I'm seeing has me fucking excited as anything, man. I mean, you should feel these nipples right now. I am into this. It looks like a cross between Spawn, that used to be on HBO, the Todd McFarlane cartoon of Spawn, and maybe Vampire Hunter D. So I'm so in for this. It looks bloody. It looks interesting. It looks like it's going to be taking Castlevania very, very seriously instead of cheesily taking care of it. It seems true to the story that was presented over the games about the Belmont line hunting and battling against Dracula and his minions and his allies of darkness and evil. So I'm totally in. I wish I could say more about what we were going to be getting, but we don't know that much about what we're going to get. It was only really a teaser.
But we do know we're getting it soon.
Yes, we do. We're getting it in July. So this is going up in the first week of June. You guys have to wait a month and a half tops before you get your grubby little paws on Castlevania. And if you grab it and you're like, I'm disappointed with this, guess what? Pretty soon after that, you guys are getting Defenders. What are you crying about? You're getting all of this awesomeness just for having Netflix. It's all happening to us this summer. Hell, by the time this is going out, it's going to be opening day for Wonder Woman. We're finally getting a female-driven, female-starring superhero movie. We haven't had one of these in a long time, if ever, frankly. So, this is going to be a good summer for geekdom. Seriously.
We'll see. It could be. It could be a good summer. It should be a good summer.
I'm fucking confident. There's an embargo going on right now as far as reviews for Wonder Woman. I have a feeling that our review, or at least mine and Brooke's review, is going to be coming out very, very quickly after the movie drops. But as of right now, as of recording, there is an embargo, but there are murmurs, and people are saying as much as they can without breaking the embargo, and it's saying that they've been waiting a long time for DC to make a good movie for their cinematic universe, and it looks like they've finally got it. So, time will tell. The people will tell. The fans will tell on how good Wonder Woman is, but I'm in. But we're not talking about Wonder Woman. We're talking about Castlevania, and I'm hyped.
Going back to Wonder Woman, though, if you're interested in Wonder Woman, you think she's awesome, and you like Conan O'Brien, he did a bit where he was training with her, and it was fantastic. Okay, back to Castlevania.
Oh, I saw that.
It was great. Yes. It was great.
So, yeah, back to Castlevania. The iconic whip is there. The blood is there. The lashing is there. And just that line. And I really love kind of dark delivery of it. I'm the one who kills Dracula. And I'm like, ooh, this is great. You're not going to kill him, bitch. You're not going to kill him. He's going to kill you. And this is going to be legacy. This is going to go on for years. And that's the kind of thing I wanted to see. That was what I was expecting with a live-action version, is almost like a Castlevania version of The Tudors, where maybe a season or at least a half a season goes through the life and the exploits of a member of the Belmont line. And then maybe dedicating an entire season to Alucard, maybe half a season to a full season for Trevor, who was always my favorite Belmont. I want to say that was Castlevania 3, I think.
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Because I know, Adrian, you were an uber fan of the Castlevania series.
I am, but I'm more a fan of everything from Symphony of the Night on. Don't get me wrong, I love the first 3 games on the NES, but that when a game is so iconic that it's one half of the title of a genre of games, a Metroidvania.
Yes,
that's that was when I started really getting into the series.
No, totally understandable.
Let me look it up. I can't remember if it's Trevor or not. So,
all right, man.
Keep talking. Talk amongst yourselves.
So, I that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I mean, as an uber fan of the series, or at least from Symphony on, are you in? Are you, kind of lashing with caution? I mean, how are you feeling?
Oh no, I'm very excited to see a new version of this property, and we'll kind of talk about that why when we get into our main topic, which who knows when that's.
I think we're ready for it. I think we're ready for it now. I think we've said all we need to say about this teaser. I mean, we've talked for about 5 minutes on essentially 30 seconds of content in this teaser trailer. The majority of it was setting up what we were getting. Kind of, what are we doing? What are we doing? Boom. Big Castlevania vampire dick right out there.
So you were right. Just looking it up, it looks like Trevor is the main protagonist of Castlevania 3, and I believe Castlevania 3 is what this series is based off of, because you see some of these side characters in there. You see Grant and you see Alucard, or what we assume to be Alucard, and
right.
I forget who the sorceress is, like Sifa or something. But yeah, it looks like it's at least partially based around the third the third entry in the series.
See that? I'm dropping knowledge bombs everywhere I turn. It's like, love it. So, for our main topic tonight, I think we've said all we can say about the trailer, right?
I think so.
All right, our main topic is going to be the rise and fall of Konami, which is the company that brought us Castlevania and one of my personal favorites, Metal Gear.
Oh, yeah. I actually pulled up... Oh, that's weird. I didn't grab that. Anyways, I'm not sure people understand how big Konami was or has been.
It was a fucking juggernaut.
Yeah. And I mean, throughout most of the console era, even right at the NES era, I mean, you had things like Castlevania, Adventure Island, Contra, Gradius, Bomberman, and then moving on forward, Contra was incredible. Like, they had incredible games. And
couldn't play it without the Konami code, but I dedicated so much of my early years to playing Contra.
They had a code named after their company that they snuck into the vast majority of their games. Like, and people knew it. People knew what this code was. It's still on the web today. You probably go to Google
up, down, left, right. Sorry.
Yeah, no, seriously. Up, down, left, right, BA, enter or some shit. And
select start.
There are websites that'll actually, you type that in and they'll do something because it was so important. Konami was so big.
Exactly. It was very culturally significant.
So, I mean, it's kind of like with all these series, and as you mentioned, the Metal Gear and Silent Hill and Dance Dance Revolution and Suikoden, it was like this was like the second wave of just like fantastic games and game series. And you're kind of like, okay, well, what's going on with them now?
Right.
And it's
games that defined our childhood, to be frank. I mean, we did a segment on arcade games where DDR came up, and that game You thought you looked cool playing it. You did not look cool playing it. You were trying to get chicks. You were not getting chicks. But that was such an important part of our formative years in the arcade. You know what I mean? Let alone at house parties, where the whole idea was to look like a doofus. And Silent Hill, these are games that give me and my wife nightmares to this day.
Yeah, I mean, so there's just, I think back in the NES era, there was like two big companies that weren't hardware manufacturers as well. Like Nintendo was big and Sega was big, but it was pretty much Konami and Capcom. I mean, you could make an argument for
that's true.
You can make an argument for Namco, but I mean, it's like every other game. You know, if it wasn't made by Konami, it was probably made by Capcom. If it wasn't made by Capcom, it was probably made by Konami.
That's true.
And so, to basically have molded a generation, or even multiple generations, you could argue, because they spanned so many console eras. They just kind of fell apart, which is interesting. I mean, I think for me, they hold the spot for the two best games on the original PlayStation, and potentially you could make an argument two of the best games ever, because they essentially launched, a series of titles. And I'm of course talking about, I loved the original Metal Gear Solid.
Oh my god, so amazing, so iconic.
Incredible.
Probably one of the games that I've beaten the most in my life. I mean, to this day, I'm 31 years old. I still remember getting this game, what was it, my 12th birthday. I remember this birthday specifically. I had a chocolate cake with chocolate frosting. Don't you fucking judge me, Adrian Steve. And for my birthday, I got Resident Evil 2, which was a Capcom game.
Mm-hmm.
I got the VHS of Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, and I got Metal Gear Solid. And I remember having my birthday, calling in sick to school the next day, and just binging Metal Gear Solid with Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare on loop in the background. Because everybody was gone that day, so I brought my TV down to the living room, and I had a movie going on, and I had Metal Gear going on. And that was just one of the most fun times in my life. And I've played that game so many times. So many of the characters are so iconic, Sniper Wolf, Solid Snake himself, Liquid Snake, Revolver Ocelot, Decoy Octopus. Oh my god, the nostalgia bombs just by saying the original one alone.
Psycho Mantis.
Psycho Mantis. Do you remember the trick with the controller?
Yeah, that blew me away. That I never even thought. I kept losing at that fight. And there hits a certain point where they just call you up on the codec. They're like, hey, idiot, why don't you try this? Why don't you try plugging into the other control port? And I was like, are you serious?
They had a system in there where Psycho Mantis, one of the characters in the game, read files from your memory card off to you and would actually talk to you about how you play Final Fantasy VII, or mention that you play Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat or whatever the fuck. It was really, really cool. It was so ahead of its time. Mm-hmm. Courtesy of Hideo Kojima.
Fantastic, man.
So
yeah,
absolutely.
I loved Metal Gear Solid. I absolutely loved it. I think it was the first game and one of the very few games that I played through. I was fully engulfed, just totally sucked in. I beat it. I watched the end credits, and I immediately started playing all over again.
I've done it, man.
Immediately, I was like, I have to play this again. I have to. You're chasing that. I have to experience this again. But I mean, you can and you can't. You don't. It's not ever like that first time. But yeah, so that was one of the two best games on the PlayStation console, in my opinion. And then the other one, also Konami, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Just
oh my god, yes,
unbelievable game.
Definitely,
and very different genres. I mean, Metal Gear Solid's 3D, Castlevania Symphony of the Night 2D. But I mean, just you'd be hard pressed to find a better pair of games on a console, that were the best of that era from the same company.
Now, you also said possibly two of the best games ever made. Which ones would you call those two?
I mean, you could argue that Metal Gear Solid is one of the best games ever made. You could argue that Castlevania Symphony of the Night is
argument. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I would take it that far, but it's definitely right at the top. It's definitely in that top tier.
They have two of my favorite games of all time, two of the games that have never gotten old for me, and that to this day I will play at least once a year. Both of them came from Konami. And one of them is Metal Gear Solid, but it's number 3, Snake Eater.
Unbelievable game. Absolutely unbelievable.
That game makes me cry every single time at the end.
That game is an absolute work of art. Absolute work of art.
It really is, from beginning to end. I mean, with the mastery of Hideo Kojima, who is a company man for Konami. We're coming back to him. But company man for Konami, he essentially helped to build that company. He was a visionary. And the way that he tells a story, the way he makes you just engrossed with his characters is unparalleled. It really is. And Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, takes place during the Cold War, and you're playing as Big Boss, who's one of the villains throughout the majority of the Metal Gear series. That's really not spoilers, it's just common knowledge at this point. But you have to play as him, and you get to see war and life and the Cold War, frankly, from different points of view in the same game. And you get to... the themes that it explores is just so interesting. Loyalty to the end. You know, your enemies and your villains are dictated by the times, and it's dictated by the world leaders and the players sitting behind the chessboard at any given time. Mm-hmm. Your enemy tomorrow might not be your enemy today, and vice versa. It's just such a beautiful game. Beautiful game. If you have not played it, you need to rectify that immediately. Even if you're not into video games, take it out. You know, take this game off of somebody's shelf, put it in a console that will accept it, and give it a try, because this game it's like no other.
Yeah, and if you aren't a gamer and you can get a copy of this and play it, I would say 2 things. If you aren't a gamer, put it on easy. It's the easiest that you can.
Oh God, yeah.
Don't there's no point in banging your head against the wall, because it's still going to be an enjoyable experience. And 2,
this is a game you play for, first and foremost, the story. You don't need to play it to prove anything to anybody. You play this game for the story.
And then second of all, I would say there are some aspects of Metal Gear Solid that are a little goofy or a little over the top.
Yes.
So I'd say, you know, if that starts to bother you, or if you're kind of not so sure about it, push through it, because there are some amazing moments that are absolutely worth it.
Yes. The second game that I wanted to bring up as far as favorite games of all time is Silent Hill 2. That game is horrifying. That game is layered. That game is masterfully written. The soundtrack alone was the main theme for Silent Hill 2 was my ringtone for about 2 years. You know the one I'm talking about, right?
I actually never played Silent Hill. You're gonna smack the shit out of me.
Oh my God, Adrian, how the fuck do you call yourself a gamer and you've never played Silent Hill 2?
I never really got into the survival horror genres. So I didn't play a lot of the Resident Evils. I didn't play a lot of Silent Hills.
This game is a survival horror by definition only. By definition only, but it supersedes the survival horror. This is not your Resident Evil. This is not your Resident Evil 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 55. It doesn't matter. There are good gems in those. Please, all of you Resident Evil purists out there, I'm not besmirching you. I played them and I love them too. But there is something different about Silent Hill 2. And what I mean by that is the psychology. Again, just like Metal Gear, it's the story. But it's not just the story that it's giving you, it's the interpretation of it. And it's the background characters. It's the layers upon layers upon layers. You play as a man named James Sunderland, who's drawn to Silent Hill, which, if it sounds spooky and ominous, that's because it is. But he's drawn to Silent Hill because he received a letter from his wife Mary saying, "Meet me at our favorite place in Silent Hill." Well, there's a little something weird about that, seeing as though his wife has been dead for over a year. So he shows up at Silent Hill trying to essentially find her, and keeps on running into a group of really strange people there, including a little girl and a woman named Maria that looks just like his dead wife. And throughout the game, you're being pursued by one of the most iconic big bads in video game history, Pyramid Head. So, and I have to leave it there, because even though I could tell you exactly what this game is and exactly what this game is about, and I could tell you every line from the multiple endings, which I've gotten all of the endings, this is a game that you need to experience, because the terror in this game is made so palpable by the video game format. You can watch a horror movie, like, any Freddy or Jason movie, and scream, "Don't go to the right, don't go to the right." So instead of having to scream, "Don't go to the right," you go to the left. But in this type of a game, unlike any other, you go to the left, and now you have to deal with the consequences and the repercussions. Every single enemy in this game is meticulously crafted to fit the narrative of what's going on. Pyramid Head himself has a point and has a reason, and he's not just a scary looking thing because the video game needed a scary looking thing. There's a reason for him being there. It's a work of art and a masterpiece. So Silent Hill 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3, I cannot recommend these games enough.
And
I mean, these games should be in museums. They are that good. They are pieces of art.
And I'm throwing in a Castlevania Symphony of the Night as well. And you know what's funny?
That's totally fine. That's totally fine.
All of them.
And I agree.
All of them. Made by the same company.
Yes.
And by the way, Robbie, I will see if I can get Silent Hill 2. You gotta get Fear, the original. You gotta play that one. That'll be our trade.
That's totally fine. I just need to get my PS3 repaired first. But I will play Fear, I promise.
Okay. Anyways,
I don't think they released it for PS4 yet. Otherwise, I would just do it like tomorrow.
I don't know. I mean, if you have a halfway decent computer, you can probably play it at this point. It's 10. I think it's over 10 years old. If
oh
not
God,
more.
yeah. Oh yeah, it is.
So,
yeah.
Anyways,
yes.
So Konami, amazing company, just fucking crushing it, releasing masterpiece after masterpiece. Not to say there weren't any stinkers, but I mean,
there's stinkers and everything.
Yeah,
you know.
How many?
Even Kevin Smith made Red State.
Yeah, how many companies can boast, arguably 3 of the best games of all time? Not many.
Right.
And there's as I said, there's a little bit of personal, like my personal opinion in there, but I mean, go look up the ratings on these games, and you'll just see nothing but glowing praise. Just review after review after review. So
even with Silent Hill 2, this guy named Yahtzee, I believe he's a British guy that now lives in Australia, so he's got kind of a muddled accent, but he's a very well-known, well-respected, hugely watched video game reviewer. You can even find his video game reviews on fucking Hulu. He's that popular. Even he uses, to this day, Silent Hill 2 as the basis of comparison for every other horror game, not just survival horror, but horror game, period, ever made. He uses Silent Hill 2 as his barometer to this day.
And that might not be fair, because if that's, you can consider that one of the best games of all time.
Agreed, but that's saying something. The fact that this game was one of the best games of all time. And it's over 10 years old, too. And
they still hold up. That's what I'm saying. You can still play Castlevania Symphony of the Night today and have a great experience. You can still play Metal Gear Solid 3 and have a great experience.
And I do.
And he does. And Silent Hill 2, apparently. From what I hear.
And I do.
From what I hear, you can still play that today and you have a great experience.
Platinumed, bitch.
So, I mean, as I was saying, like, Konami was just crushing it left and right, and just, they were ruling. They were amongst the rulers of the console game landscape. I won't say they were the only one. There's a lot of companies that were doing a lot of good things. Capcom was still around. They're still doing Devil May Cry and Mega Man and Marvel vs. Capcom and Street Fighter. And so, I mean, the Capcom didn't go away either. But I mean...
Right.
So, what happened? Because if we look at them now, there's not much coming out from them. You're not seeing Contras or Castlevanias or Silent Hills or anything.
No, you're not.
And it seems, if I remember correctly, last I heard, they were actually dropping most of their console game, like, most of their resources for console games, and they were focusing on, like, pachinko machines or something.
Yeah, exactly. They basically are almost exclusively into the little fucking Keno machine shit that they put in casinos.
Yeah.
And this is a game that gave us legacy. This is a company, rather, that gave us legacy. This is a company that has pieces and keys to my childhood. You know what I mean? And they've just decided to abandon everything to focus on gambling machines. I mean, I took a look at the release schedule. They have 2 video games that have been slated for release in 2017. And both of them are sequels of things that I've never even heard of.
Yeah, it's nuts. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you go from ruling everything to abandoning everything, pretty much? And I think there's an interesting story in there. And Robbie, I believe you know a little bit more about it than I do, because, as you said, you are our resident Silent Hill fan.
Oh, I'm hugely into Silent Hill. This was not the beginning of the end. This is more toward the end. I don't know everything involved with the downslide, but it was a while coming. I do know that the higher-ups in Konami have been increasingly difficult to work with. The reason being is they, instead of creating games and instead of creating an experience and instead of carving out their part in not just the video game history, but in the world of, and as I see video games, in the world of art, or in the world of developing memories and experiences and telling stories, using video games to expand or enrich life and experiences. You know what I mean? Which, to me, video games, like no other medium, can do. Instead of doing that, they became more focused on the bottom dollar. And they pushed a lot of creative minds out of there. And a lot of them left there and have begun creating what has come to be known now as the auteur movement. And we're seeing a lot of benefits coming out of that. And a lot of things, they're coming out slowly, but we're seeing a lot of the originals, the OGs, that gave us a lot of our memories, creating their own companies and creating their own games and making them the way that they want to make them. But I think that everything about this downslide for Konami could be encapsulated with the treatment and ultimate breaking ties with Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima, as I mentioned earlier, is the creator of the Metal Gear franchise. He was the mastermind and the visionary behind it all. He was behind the scripts. He was in studio helping to develop what the characters look like. He cast David Hayter. He then later cast Kiefer fucking Sutherland and created a brand new video game engine to run not just Metal Gear Ground Zeroes, but Metal Gear The Phantom Pain, which many people will say is one of the best video games within the last 10 years. And you know what? I tend to agree, because that game is absolutely incredible. Still nowhere near as good as 3, but it is incredible. So, but Hideo Kojima has been Konami's golden boy forever. I mean, this man could do no wrong, but this man had a vision, has a vision, knows how to execute that, has the brains behind him, has the team behind him. By all accounts, in everything I've ever read, is one of the sweetest, most down-to-earth people that you ever want to meet. Knows very, very little English, but knows enough to gracefully say thank you when people praise his work and when people come up to, meet him. One of the nicest people you ever want to meet. A couple of years ago, my wet dream became reality. Hideo Kojima, creator of the Metal Gear franchise, was slated to work on the latest Silent Hill, one of my other favorite franchises. And I couldn't believe it, dude. I was diamond hard in a minute, and I had to go to the hospital to get fluid drained. It was that dangerous. I could have died. That's what happened. I was just, oh my God, I cannot believe that this is happening. Somebody pinched me. People pinched me in various places. Still have scars. But it was happening, man. Hideo Kojima was teaming up with Guillermo del Toro to bring us a brand new Silent Hill in a way that, and they were promising a video game like we have never experienced before. They were going to be bringing in the Fox engine, which means that you can actually have people starring in the video game. Okay, it's not just a simple rendering that may or may not be based on someone, like the poor Ellen Page performances that we got out of Beyond Two Souls. If anybody has played The Phantom Pain, there's no question in your mind that the person that was playing it may not identically resemble Kiefer Sutherland, but that was being played by Kiefer Sutherland. It was almost flawless. That engine was going to be used to make a Silent Hill game. and they were going to go deep, and they were going to go dark. They were going to go in a direction, and this is what they promised, that you haven't seen since Silent Hill 2, and we're going to break those rules as well. And that was a direct quote from Guillermo del Toro. But then things started to fall apart. Pretty much the same week that they cast the main character, Norman Reedus, you started to hear murmurings coming out from Konami about how there was bad blood in that studio and that things were kind of slowing down. So almost to placate the fans, they released a video game which, if you've got a PS4 that has this on it, it is going for hundreds of dollars even now on eBay. So if you've got it, do not delete it no matter what you do. They released a playable teaser called PT, playable teaser. And nobody knew what it was. It just showed up one day on the PlayStation Network store. And people were like, PT, what the fuck is this? Let's download it. And essentially what it ended up being is a really fucked up first-person walking simulator where you go through and you're almost on loop. You wake up in a room, you go down the hall, you turn, there's a bathroom to your right, there's a little hallway with stairs, then you keep on going around, and then you just keep on going in loop. And there's a radio that's playing that's kind of telling the story of a terrible murder that took place. And shit starts to go wrong in this house. And the more times you go through it, the darker it seems. And you cannot actually progress to the next area until you notice the one or two things that might be different. And it might be that in one picture, a man and his wife are smiling at the camera happily, and in the next one, it's only the man smiling happily and the woman is gone. And in one, there's what looks to be a crying baby fetus in a sink. And in the next, you turn around and this shapeless thing attacks you. And then you black out and you wake back up in the room. And it's almost on loop, and it's on loop, and it's on loop. And it's almost like you feel like you're in fucking purgatory. And then finally, once you figure out what the last thing is, you've beaten the playable teaser, and then you realize what this was. And if you know what you're doing, you can get through this teaser in like 2 minutes or so. And at the very end, you see Norman Reedus walking, and you see the title, Silent Hills. And you're like, oh my god, this is what we're going to be getting? Now, I may not be doing this playable teaser justice, but let me say this. Brooke could not stand playing this game with me for more than 45 seconds. She got too scared. I am not joking about that. Because she joined in with me and she sat down once things had already gotten dark. She got too scared to play this playable teaser. And that's what it was, a teaser for what we were going to be getting with Silent Hills. And as I said, this game is worth money because it was completely removed from the PlayStation Store. Kojima ended up quitting from Konami. He's changed his tune a little bit now, but during the time, with bad blood. Silent Hills was canceled. All of his subsequent projects were canceled. Del Toro was pulled out of the project. And to this day, he's fucking bereft. A direct quote as recently as 2017 from Guillermo del Toro is, "Fuck Konami." So they've even made enemies in the film world, because not many video game companies had people that have respectable careers. Guillermo del Toro, Pan's Labyrinth. I think most of us have at least heard of it, let alone seen it, and was obsessed by it, horrified and mystified by Pan's Labyrinth. That man was working with Hideo Kojima on Silent Hills. So they had a falling out. Kojima quit, and not only was his projects all canceled, he brought his team with him. He cleared out hundreds of workers from Konami at that point. Konami all but canceled everything else on their roster. So probably close to like 40 games became 2 almost overnight.
Yep.
And that's the type of stuff that you actually have to look deep, and you have to know the players to actually find this kind of information. Because you can find now that it's been a few years, Kojima, he never really says that he and Konami are cool, but he he likes to reminisce about all the experiences and how he plans on creating and pushing himself and creating bigger and better things until the day he dies. And I respect the hell out of that. But, he kind of speaks about it in a reminiscent, flowery way. He never talks about Konami in the present tense, which I think also shows a lot of class. Because you can almost tell that it all came down to the bottom line. They probably realized how expensive Silent Hills was getting and tried to interfere with his vision to a degree that would give us a shit product.
Yep.
Which is what a lot of video games have been lately. A lot of games that I've been personally excited about and waiting for, and they ended up being just a shadow of what I wanted them to be. A good example being The Last Guardian. I've been waiting for a spiritual successor to Shadow of the Colossus and Ico for so long. And although I did love The Last Guardian, it was essentially a glorified PS2 game, utilizing no new technology or anything like that. I was disappointed in the finished product. As much as I loved it, I was still disappointed. It could have been so much more.
Yeah.
And Kojima doesn't ever want to do that. He prides on himself on never wanting to do that. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's to his detriment that he doesn't want to do that. Because I will say, as much as I love the man, Metal Gear 4 had way too many cutscenes.
Yeah.
That was essentially a movie.
Yeah, a lot of the Metal Gears you can make arguments that there's a lot of cutscenes and not as much gameplay.
Right. None more glaring than Guns of the Patriots.
Yeah.
That game was probably, without exaggeration, 80% cutscene, 20% game, which is not what I want, but at least the story was still good. You know what I mean?
I still enjoyed it. I only played it once, and I wouldn't go back and play it again.
I only played it once. I will go back and play it again, but it's not high on my priority.
Yeah.
I find myself at a crossroads. I could go back and play this again. It's the only Metal Gear game I've only played once. But that Snake Eater, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the kind of conundrum that I find myself in. So, but that's pretty much what happened, is some what appears to be profiteering, gluttonous practices and lack of vision on the executive's part in Konami essentially destroyed nostalgia for a lot of us and the future of games that could be for a lot more of us. A game that was being talked about by everybody in just PT. It's a playable teaser, and that teaser was being nominated for awards. A 5-minute game. A 5-minute game was being talked about and played more than God of War or Call of Duty or the latest Dragon Age or anything like that. And I'm not besmirching a lot of these games. People have their preferences. I love Dragon Age, but PT was something different. And that was, again, only 5 minutes. Can you imagine what the finished product could have been? Between Kojima and Del Toro, Norman Reedus starring in it. That's the real tragedy. It's not just that game, but the legacy that could have been left by that, by upping the ante in a studio like Konami. A studio that's given us some of the best games ever created.
Yeah, instead of, maybe these are in the wrong terms, but I guess instead of doubling down, they folded, Instead of really...
You're right, wrong terms, because you mixed blackjack with
pushing
poker.
all in, But
they folded.
You're
right.
they
yeah.
And almost literally, I mean, their games, as you said, 40 games went down to 2. And
almost overnight.
Yeah.
I cannot emphasize that enough. Somebody went to work that day with 40 games in their schedule, and they're sitting there, okay, I'm going to do some rendering on this game, and then in 2 months I'm going to be pulled from here and I'm going to be working on this game. He's a bright-eyed new developer. He's going to be working with one of the leaders in the industry. He's going to be working with Kojima. Then he's going to be working over, and maybe he's going to be working on a new game with Miyazaki. And by the time he comes back to work the next day, he realizes he doesn't have a job because those games are canceled. The studios are shutting down. The internal studios are shutting down in there.
Yeah. I mean,
but here's
we're talking we're talking about the rise and fall of Konami, and it was a pretty slow rise, and they were sitting at the peak for a long time, and then they literally just fell off the cliff.
Yeah. It was there were I'm not going to pretend to know like I said before I went on my long fucking monologue there, I'm not going to pretend to know everything that contributed to it. And there was a lot more than just the situation with Kojima. But not only was Kojima the straw that broke the camel's back, it was the straw that essentially rendered the camel extinct. Because Konami, for the most part, doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. And it's interesting that we're getting a Netflix series based off of one of their intellectual properties. Personally, I find that very interesting.
I do too. Are you also aware that it's happening again, and we'll see if this one sticks, but there's also plans to move forward with a Metal Gear live-action film, and attached to it right now, at least as of the last time I looked, is Christian Bale to be playing Solid Snake.
I will believe it. I remember when they were talking about that during Metal Gear Solid 2. Like, Metal Gear Solid 2 wasn't even out yet, and they were talking about how there was going to be a live-action movie. And it would be perfect, because that's exactly what Hideo Kojima wants to make most of the time.
Yes, it is.
But
and it's so cinematic.
Yeah.
The Metal Gear series. It's so cinematic.
That being said, I don't know that Christian Bale is the right guy to do it, and I will believe it when I see it. Because that was before Metal Gear Solid 2, and we're already post Metal Gear Solid 5. And it's not like he's cranking these out every year like a Call of Duty. You know, there's been a good amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Metal Gear Solid, I was 11, 12 when it first came out. I'm 31, so that's 2 full decades right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite a while between Guns of the Patriots to Phantom Pain. Because when I moved to Buffalo, I just picked up Metal Gear Solid 3 that summer. And I moved up at the end of summer, and I had already beaten it 3 times at that point. So, I don't know, man. I just don't know.
Well, if I remember correctly, I feel like every time after the second Metal Gear Solid, they're like, oh, this is Kojima's last Metal Gear Solid. Like, I feel like Metal Gear Solid 3, if they would have finished with that one, would still have been a very nice wrap to the series. Were there loose ends? Of course, but it was a beautiful game. And
yes.
It had a great finality to it. And then I remember getting excited. They're like, oh my god, he's coming back. Metal Gear Solid 4. He's doing Metal Gear Solid 4. I was like, oh shit, I have to get a PS3 to play this game. Like, I literally, after Metal Gear Solid 3, I have to purchase a PS3 so I can play Metal Gear Solid 4. That was
the reason I bought the PS3.
Yep.
That was the reason. Yep.
And then I was like, it was good. It wasn't as good as 3, but it's still good. And I was glad that I followed it. I was like, okay, well, I guess he's done. And then they're like, no, wait, he's coming back. He's going to do Metal Gear Solid 5. And you're like, no, I haven't gotten around to that one yet. But just like...
You need to.
I know.
It's a different type of Metal Gear game. It's a lot more like Peace Walker. You need to play it. It's one of the best games in the last 10 years. Not the, but among.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of games I need to catch up on.
Just in terms that you would understand just based on your personal preference, it's Crypt of the Necrodancer good.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. And I even loved Crypt of the Necrodancer.
I have so many games that are just on my list of, like, everyone has said these games are fantastic and you need to play them. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I worry is that if I don't play the old ones soon, it will become a lot harder to play them. It'll either become a lot harder to find them or the consoles. So, like, one of the ones that I'm nowhere near playing, but I know I need to, is Red Dead Redemption. Everybody up and down has sworn that is an amazing game. Everyone up and down has sworn that it's an amazing game, and I just haven't.
It's incredible.
I know.
It's absolutely incredible.
You don't have to tell me. Everyone has already told me these things. I understand that. I just don't have the console, and I don't have the time. And fucking Humble Bundle keeps coming out with shit, and they keep buying it. I think I have 450 games in my library, and I think I've completed like 10 of them.
Oh, Jesus, Adrian, Steve. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed our history and our very passionate look at the rise and then the quick and subsequent fall of Konami. And by fall, I don't mean just fall from grace. I mean Konami all but doesn't exist. And the thing is, Konami might hit a comeback.
They could.
But I really think it's going to take a long time for fans of these series and, you know, fans of gaming and people that knew what happened to even jump back on the bandwagon. Because Konami fucked over a lot of people, and a lot of people that a lot of gamers loved. And it's honestly pretty much because of Konami that the auteur movement was really solidified. Because you've got the creator of Mega Man that came out to create his own Mega Man type game the way he wanted to with Mighty Number 9. I think maybe he personally should have stuck with Mega Man, but it was still a fun enough game. Kojima has gone on to create Kojima Studios. He's got a game coming out here very, very quickly. Death Stranding. So he's got that coming out. The original creators of Castlevania have their own game that was funded on Kickstarter that should be coming out, I think, this year.
I'm actually looking that up right now. It's called the Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which is...
That's the one.
It is very much a Castlevania style.
Yes, it's not
title.
A direct Castlevania game, but it is a very much Castlevania style. Again, a part of the auteur movement. The creators are lots of the creators of the original Castlevania games, being able to do what they want with the resources and the money and the crowdfunding, basically coming to the fans, being funded by the fans, being brought to you by the original creators of the shit that you loved. And Konami fucked over a lot of us, but if this auteur movement really goes through, and some of these independent studios created by the OGs that made the games that we truly love, we could be in for a renaissance of games like we could never even expect. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and that's one of the things I love about... I know you can get these games on other platforms as well, but PC gaming... you don't have to have the latest and greatest computer to play it. You know, a lot of these are 2D. You know, they're two-dimensional sprites.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Your computer doesn't have to be good at all to play Crypt or the Necrodancer. It's very, very basic 3D, but that is still a fucking fantastic game.
And that's just it. Even through this auteur movement, and it didn't start because of it. It's been out for a while now, but it's really just kind of solidified the retro gaming aspect as well, because you're having a lot of older styles of game making having a renaissance, you know, with incredible games too. Crypt of the Necrodancer being one of them, Super Meat Boy, The Binding of Isaac. There's a Metroidvania that if you have not played and you're a fan of Metroidvanias, if you haven't played this game, you need to turn in your card right now. Right fucking now. And that game is called Axiom Verge. This game is incredible. Designed and created by one guy. One guy made this game. Not a team, one guy. And this game is absolutely incredible. I even have a shirt inspired by it. I love this game. Some of the other ones, Yacht Club created Shovel Knight. So, I mean, these games are out and abound, and they're influenced by lots of these games that were created by these companies that we loved growing up. But my ultimate point is, Konami may have been the big studio behind these games that we love so much that I just spent 20 minutes sucking the dick of at the beginning of my monologue. But they're not the ones that made it. Konami didn't make Silent Hill 3. Or, well, they didn't make Silent Hill 3. But they didn't make Metal Gear 3. Hideo Kojima made Metal Gear 3.
Yep.
And Hideo Kojima now has his own studio. So even though it was under the Konami banner, these creators are still out there, and this work is still out there. And it's just a shame that it cannot flow under the banner that we remembered as children. You know? That's the real shame of it. But the games are still going to be coming. As a matter of fact, maybe one day they'll drop the Silent Hill aspect of the game, and we will get PT.
So,
you know,
we've been talking a lot about Metroidvania, and people might not exactly understand what that is, especially if you have any non-gamers.
That's a very good point. Metroidvania basically is a type of gameplay that is directly inspired by or emulates the style of play of either a Castlevania game or a Metroid game. Hence the name Metroidvania.
And so, what are some of the like characteristics of a game along those lines?
Typically speaking, side-scrolling, leveling up and acquiring new weapons as you progress through the game. That's one of the key points of them.
It's kind of think of it like an action game, but it's deeper than just a standard action game. Like a standard action game would be like your original Contra. You just run around, you shoot people with bullets. Sometimes you get a different weapon, like a different gun that shoots different bullets, and that's it. That's the game. You shoot things, you try not to get shot. Whereas in the Metroidvanias, they consider it more of an action-adventure game, because not only are you running around and killing things, but you're collecting gear, and you're leveling up, and you have stats, and you have items, and you're exploring a castle or exploring somewhere. And you'll get to a certain place where you can't finish exploring this area because you can't jump high enough, or you can't break through this metal door, so you have to go in a different direction that you haven't explored yet, and then you'll find something there that'll let you get past that. There's a lot of exploration and a lot of fighting, but the typicals would be large maps, very specific areas. Like there will be a lava area with a lava boss. There will be areas with bosses, and then you move on to the next area, but you might have to come back to pick something up. And so action, adventure, exploration, level up, items typically, and I think a lot of them will be 2D, but not all of them. There were some Castlevania titles on the PS2, I think it was, that were still very much in that Castlevania, Metroidvania style, but they were fully 3D.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they had elements of Metroidvania. They had a lot of differences, but still at its core, still counted as Metroidvania.
Definitely. And so and these are things that, I mean, as I said, it's become its own type of genre, and as you said, it's based
very
off
much
of
so.
Metroid. The entire Metroid series is always very exploratory and upgrades. Maybe not levels, but there were always upgrades to get to different areas and exploring. And then Castlevania, specifically from Symphony of the Night on, because the first 4, if you count the Super Nintendo Castlevania, those were very much, the first 4 minus Castlevania 2 didn't have very much when it came to exploration. You were pretty much on rails. You had level 1, then level 2, and level 3, and you went straight through, and things didn't change, and you couldn't really go back if you wanted to, and there was a boss at the end, and that was it. Castlevania 3 introduced branching paths, but it still was very much the same. Castlevania 2 is extremely exploratory. That's probably a discussion for a different show. That is an interesting difference from the first Castlevania and the later Castlevanias. It's like, it's not bad. It's the redheaded stepchild, but not in a bad way. It's just very, very, very different. Kind of like, what is it? Zelda 2 is very, very different than the first.
Oh my
Zelda.
God, night and fucking day.
One of these sequels has higher regards than the other.
One of these sequels is not like the other.
So, but I mean, again.
Sorry, I had to do it.
Oh yeah, no worries. So, but I mean, it's just, this was our childhood,
Mm-hmm.
And this is a company that was responsible for a lot of it, and it's really, I'm thankful that I got to play their games. I'm thankful that I got to play such fantastic works of art, and it's sad to see what's happened, and it's unfortunate.
Right.
And I guess no one can stay at the top forever, but they didn't.
It would be nice if they were still a player.
Yeah, they didn't just gracefully step back or just happen to get surpassed by someone else. I don't know if they got greedy or they got stupid or they got frustrated, or I don't know what the actual motivations were, but they basically flipped the bird and cut ties. They flipped the bird and cut ties to a lot of the people that helped build their company, their developers, the game studios, and ultimately to their fans. So, it's going to be, if they can make a return, it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a very hard-fought battle, because they're going to have to win back a lot of trust amongst everyone in the community.
Yeah,
everyone
not
they
just
screwed
not
over.
even just the customers, but also the developers themselves.
I think that's going to be the hardest fight in the beginning. I mean, if you can get those people back, if you can get Hideo Kojima back, and he can say, I don't like what happened, but we're going to work together. We're going to release this game, whatever game it's going to be, the next Metal Gear Solid or the next Hideo Kojima game, and it's going to be a Konami title as well. So, if he can forgive them, then the fans can probably find a way to do it too.
As true as that statement is, I don't think you'll ever see a day where that happens. I think that ship, for Kojima at least, maybe other developers, sure, but for Kojima at least, I think that ship has sailed.
I wouldn't be surprised. I really, really wouldn't. So, and we spoke really quickly on the Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. It looks like it's currently slated for Q1 2018. So, gotta keep waiting. Damn it.
Damn. Well, Q1, that's still less than a year away.
As long as there's no,
delays.
Yeah.
Like there was for Mighty Number 9.
Yeah.
Yep. 2 years of delays for that. But that's our main topic, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of history, that little bit of Adrian and Robbie reminisce, talking about some amazing games, some terrible situations, some amazing developers. If you guys are indie games, hopefully you guys got some really good ideas for things to go out and play. So if you like what we were doing, one more time with that facebook.com/group/Nerdynomicon. You can email us as well, nerdynomicon@gmail.com. Tweet at us at Nerdynomicon. Starting to see a pattern here? And finally, for the anomaly here, if you like what we do, if you want to help us keep the lights on, if you want to help keep Adrian fed and fat, consider going over to patreon.com/artfulgremlins. Donate $1, $2, whatever you guys can afford. Every little bit helps out. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much to the patrons that already follow us and subscribe to us. We've got a few of you guys. We love you. We appreciate you. If you don't have the resources to do that, you don't feel like we're quite worth $1 a month or anything like that, that's fine. You can always help us out by going on to iTunes, giving us a rating and a review, especially a rating and a review. Every single one of those helps us out more than you can even imagine. So, I think that takes us out of it, Fatty.
How dare you?
By the way, Adrian is skinny as a fucking rail.
I've been gaining a little bit of weight, but I'm still skinny.
All right, guys. Until next time, I've been Robbie.
And I've been Adrian.
Let's close the book on this week. What do you think? Not Konami style.
Oh, God, no.